YanBar Podcast. My name is Bryan Barcelo, host of this episode. Today, very special guest. He's a scientist, engineer, author, and lecturer. And he has a great hypothesis I want to share with you. It's called the rope hypothesis. It's going to explain to you, not just describe this thing, right, but explain the workings and mechanisms of a magnet and some other phenomena, mysterious phenomena, such as light and a whole bunch of other things. Before I hurt myself, I'm going to take it over to Bill Gaede. Thank you for coming to the program, the podcast. Thank you, Bill.
How you doing, Brian?
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic, thank you. Explain to us, Bill, exactly how does magnets work?
Well, we have to go back, take one step backwards, because that's going in the middle of the story. People might not understand what's going on here. The main issue here is that, we're criticizing what the establishment does. And it's not very nice, or people think that everybody who attacks the establishment is simply a wacko. He's out of his mind. And he gets treated that way. I get a lot of rotten eggs thrown in my face. And, and I think there's no room today for new theories, and that's part of the big problem. And I'm saying we have a problem with the interpretations, the physical interpretations of physics, of all of physics, 100% of it. Specifically, everything dealing with invisible entities or invisible phenomena. Light, we can't see it. We don't know what, we see light, but
Right.
We don't know what light itself is. We don't know what is doing this magic. We don't know what magnetism is. You mentioned magnets. We don't know what a magnetic field is made of. We don't know what gravity is. We drop everything, you let go, something goes to the center of the earth, or at least to the floor.
Right.
I think everybody can vouch for that. Mm-hmm. And nobody knows what's pulling that pen to the floor. And so, mathematical physics has been trying to find answers to these questions the last at least 400 years. We're talking about since the 17th century. You're looking at people like Newton and Leibniz and Huygens and so on. And all these people, since those days, have been trying to give an explanation to these things. And what we have today are irrational explanations. And I'm just going to give you a quick example that puts it in the correct light. You have two particles, right? And I have my little props here every now and then, right? You have two particles, right? And you can consider these two atoms, two balls, whatever you want, two rocks. How does this one pull on this one? Very simple problem. This is the entire universe, right? This is all there is. This is the entire system. And I'm saying, how does this one pull on that one? You cannot do it with discrete particles. I cannot have this one throw stones at this one and bring it over. I think that's straightforward. Mm-hmm. And what I'm saying is that, all atoms in the universe are interconnected. That's my starting point. I'm saying that every atom is interconnected. Now I can explain, if this is connected to that somehow, physically connected, then yes, when I move this one will move. If this one pulls, this one will be dragged behind it. Now we can understand action at a distance. As long as we keep them separate and throw stones in between, put little particles, we can't do that magic. Mm. If you want to pull on a donkey, you got to tie a rope to its neck, and then you can pull it. But you cannot pull the donkey by throwing stones at it. I think that's straightforward.
Right.
And this is the problem with mathematical physics. The fundamental problem is that mathematical physics tries to explain phenomena using discrete particles. And I'm saying that the particle hypothesis has to once and for all be abandoned. It has to be thrown in the ash heap of history. And here I have a little, which I presented last time, but here it gives you an idea what I'm proposing. If this is what mathematical physics proposes, which is on this side here, see, all the discrete particles, I'm saying that all atoms are interconnected. Okay? And I hope you can see that.
Oh yeah, it's coming clear, yes.
Okay, and so not only are they connected, but I'm saying how are they connected? I'm saying that what connects any two atoms and we're talking about the hydrogen atom here, you know, the simplest of all atoms. I'm saying that all atoms are interconnected by a rope, not by a wave. It's not that an atom throws a wave to another atom, but they're physically connected by a rope. And what light is a torsion of that rope. I got a little rope that I've made some time ago, okay? Yes. And I'm saying, if you think of my two fists as atoms, right? Right? If those fists are atoms, what an atom does during quantum jump, it expands and contracts, right? It goes like this. It expands, it's a little balloon that's expanding and contracting, okay? When it does, what it does is torque the rope. And light is a torsion that travels along the rope. That's why it's undulating, you know, and that's why it travels straight, because this rope is tight. So we can explain many of the features. Now you can see why the electric field, in this case the thread, is at 90 degrees to the magnetic field. And both of them embrace an imaginary axis. If you pull a rope tight, there is an axis that runs right through the center of that rope. And so we think the rope is a better model to mimic or to simulate what we see with light. And now, yes, once you have that as a foundation, now you can explain, for example, magnetism. Here I have two little magnets, and we all know this magic, and it really is magic, because we can't see what it's doing. And here you have two little magnets, right? And let's see if I can do this. You know, if you hold them, wrong side. See, if you hold a magnet there, right, you can see that it doesn't fall. So you know, it does this magic. Wow. And in fact, just before I get there, you know, you can do this on your own, but before I get there, I can already see that it's pulling on it. Yeah. And likewise, if I turn it around, I can't put them together. I try to put them together, and they push each other apart, you know, it just goes sideways. You see that? And we say, well, what is this magic? You know, we can't see it. So how is Mother Nature doing this? And I'm saying if you take, I'm saying that the physical mechanism is that these ropes, one of the threads comes loose. You got a rope, right? Now I'm going to pull one of the threads out, okay? So we have this situation. This one's tight, the blue one is tight, and this one swings around the blue one. Okay, so this is turning at great speeds, and what the atoms are doing, they're twirling, and they're spinning one of the threads around the other. Okay? Now if we have many of these, you have a wall of threads, we say that's the magnetic field. How do we produce attraction? How do we produce attraction and repulsion? Well, if one wall is going in this direction and the other wall of threads is also going in the same direction, they're both going in the same direction, when this one comes up, this one comes down, and it pulls. Imagine two people skipping next to each other. One guy skips, the other skips in the same direction. When this rope comes up, this rope comes down. And this is the same thing, but with threads. The threads, one of the threads of the rope comes loose, one comes up, the other one comes down. And so they do this. And that's where it pulls. You turn the magnet around, this one, right, for example, and now they're going like this. Now they're pushing each other away. And now the more threads that intervene, the harder it is to put them together, because there are more threads pushing against each other. I'm saying that's what's happening with the magnets.
Wow.
The bottom line is we have a different explanation for light, magnetism, gravity, and it's very hard to get it out there because the majority of people already have bought into the particle hypothesis that mathematical physics sells. And we're saying that's got to change, or that's what we're trying to do.
Well, that's what we're working on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love your hypothesis. It's easy for the average person out here, you know, to understand, because it's something that we see in our everyday lives. Some of those other ideas they come up with.
You can illustrate it. You know, I mean, one of the good things about the rope model is that you can illustrate it. Everything is illustratable. The guy only has to watch the movie, and the point of it is not for him to believe, to say, oh yes, you've convinced me. No. The issue is, do you understand the mechanism I propose? Only understand. If you understood it, we're done with science. Whether you believe it or not, that's a separate issue. I call that religion. It's opinion, whether you like this theory or the other theory, that's your personal opinion. The only issue is, can you understand the mechanism that I'm proposing? And that's when we have science. You might have a different mechanism, fine, we compare mechanisms.
Right.
But the issue is to understand, not to believe, not to be convinced or be recruited or converted. We have to distinguish that as well.
There's one thing, just from reading comments in the various pages that you have, I see some confusion where people are trying to wrap their minds around these threads. Now, and I'm one of them. One thing I was trying
wrap your mind around these threads. Wrap the threads around your mind.
Okay, yeah, maybe it'll work better that way. Check this out, Bill.
Maybe that's where you're wrong.
Exactly. What I'm trying to see, what I tried to do was to actually shrink myself down to around the size of the threads. And
Atom Man.
There you go. And what I'm trying to see, I think when people are looking at it, they see a crisscross of threads all over the place. So in their minds, it might make, I don't know if there's a color associated with perhaps, but it seems like it just blankets everything. And maybe they can't separate the individual threads. So I tried to shrink myself down to where roughly the size, and maybe I can see the individual threads, so to speak. How is that? Is everything all blanketed? I don't know if I'm saying this properly, but is everything all blanketed with threads? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm saying that if every atom in the universe is connected by a rope, an electromagnetic rope, which just as an aside here, which is where DNA got its shape. The shape of DNA is a rope, is a twisted rope. And I'm saying DNA copied light. And but that's just an aside here. But if you look at two atoms, if they're connected by a rope, and we just go with that simple model, which is already quite complex in itself. Simple on the one hand, symmetric, also two balloons united by a rope. That's a simple and symmetric system. And we first must understand that, because if we're going to go into how gravity works when you have many ropes pulling on something, or you're talking about, for example, the Earth is connected to the sun. And I'm saying every atom on the Earth is connected to every atom that comprises the sun. That means from one atom here, you have a rope going to, an atom over there. And so, here I have a little prop here, okay? You can think of that as the many ropes, okay? And what the sun does essentially is, twirl the Earth around. That's what the sun does. Now we can understand it because there's a physical connection, every atom here to every atom in the sun. But see, under the official model, you cannot explain that because, you have to invent either particles, which don't work. You can't do it with particles. And what general relativity has done is say, well, space is a physical object, time is a physical object. We put them together, we create a four-dimensional object, and they warp it into some kind of bowl, a roulette, and the Earth goes around it. So that's the mechanism, that's the physical interpretation that general relativity offers. And those are maybe simple, all of these are simple when you just look at that. But yeah, when you get into the nitty gritty, it's going to get very complicated.
Yeah, exactly. We spoke about the ether. We spoke about the ether last time, and and I mentioned like perhaps these threads that are all over connecting all of these various atoms. Perhaps that's the background, the ether that people speak of or detect. We speak to that.
Yeah, in a way, it's the word ether. I gave a little presentation in my channel the other day, and the word ether has been around for since the days of the Greeks at least. And we've never really abandoned the ether. In one way or another, there's always this invisible whatever that we call ether. It used to be the medium that was undulating, that was vibrating, and they said, well, light is the vibration of the ether. And Einstein comes in and he says, no, it's space-time, but space-time essentially is a medium, and you essentially treat it as a medium, and that's the ether of today. So, and you get into quantum mechanics, and they'll tell you that particles come in, they pop in from the void, they're called virtual particles, and that's another ether. What is the cosmic background radiation? Ether. It's all ether. It's just different names for ether, different concepts, but it's the same thing. And I'm saying, yeah, in that sense, the countless ropes that if you had God's eyes, you could see everything that's invisible. We could see all these ropes connected in every atom. And that's what we're sensing with the equipment, and that is the background radiation, and that's the ether that's in the background.
Exactly.
And I don't think you can avoid that.
Right. Before we would go on, would you tell people where they can check out your material, like your lectures, your various videos, and a little bit about the Rational Mind page on Facebook, if you would?
Well, I'm giving presentations in Patreon, and it's anybody can locate it. Just look for Rational Science, and also I have these lectures on YouTube, and they can locate them there under the same name, Rational Science. And then we have Facebook. That's not handled by me, but I'm just one of the members, and it's called also Rational Scientific Method, and that's on Facebook. So these are different forums where we go into and we discuss these issues. We try to discuss them from a rational point of view, trying to make sense of how this universe works. And that's what all these forums really do. We're just trying to make sense of this and not just say, well, we don't know, and particles attract particles, and by magic, and we have warp space-time, and things that nobody can imagine.
Yes, I try
and we also campaign against what we call or consider nonsense. Black holes, dark matter, all these, entities that they've invented are conveniently heavy and invisible.
Yeah. Yeah, notice that every time
it's so convenient. I mean, from a mathematical point of view,
right.
You can say, if you have a lot of mass, you don't care what it looks like. It could look like an elephant. But the important thing is that you're concerned about the mass, because that's what you're going to put in your equation. And we're saying that's mathematics. Now bring that into physics. What are we talking about? What physical object? And all the objects are conveniently invisible and heavy.
Exactly. A lot of them seem like patches.
You'll never see a black hole.
Right.
You will always have to infer it indirectly by watching something that's visible.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah, a lot of these things that they come up with, they seem like patches or afterthoughts. They run into a stumbling block, with their theory or hypothesis. And like you said, they have to create something, Like, for instance, why doesn't the galaxies fly apart? Well, they say, well, it must be some dark matter or something, or some other,
Correct.
Yeah, exactly, and stuff. Yeah.
And that's what they do. In fact, if you look at how they came up with dark matter, for those who are not familiar with the subject, they looked at the galaxy, and they find out that the galaxies on the outside, the stars on the outside of the galaxy, travel at the same speed or even faster than some on the inside, close to the center.
Wow.
Now imagine just two runners on a track, right? You got a circular track. We all know that the guy on the inside, the guy who's got the inside track, he's gonna go faster than the guy on the outside, because he's got less distance.
Right, distance travel, yeah.
But when the guy on the outside goes faster, you kind of say, well, I could explain that. And that's the case of dark matter. What they did, they sprinkled all this heavy, invisible kilograms on the outside of the galaxy, and they say, see, now we can explain it. Oh yeah, but we can't see it. It's like, you might as well put angels in there.
Yeah, like unicorns or something, like you had said. Bill.
I mean, you might as well put spirits and you're done with. I mean, what the hell?
Well, Bill, time flies fast. You were so right about these podcasts. Time goes by super quick, and we're like really there at the end already. Is there anything that you like speak to the people about, or anything like tell them before we end this podcast?
Well, no, to keep an open mind, people should be aware that most of the theories today, if you're going to propose a new theory, you're not going to be able to get it published, because the publishing world is governed by the people who already went through the through college, and they've been brainwashed with the old theories. And so the whole world of mathematics you know, these people believe in all these things, in black holes and dark matter, and that particles do all these magical things, and that virtual particles come in from the void, and they do it all mathematically, but they can't do it physically. They can't show me in the lab. They can't even put it on the screen for me. And so what I'm saying is, if people really want to have an open mind and think a little bit outside the box, it doesn't mean they have to believe it, but if you want to stimulate your mind, you know, one good place is to go outside of the mainstream and find out what's out there. And again, you know, since it's very hard to publish, you're going to find a lot of the stuff today, in this day and age, on YouTube and places like Patreon, Facebook. You're going to have to just find a place that deals with this subject, with these subjects, right, from a different angle. And that's what I'm saying. You know, people should visit these sites, and they'll get a different view of the universe, no doubt about it.
Exactly. Yeah, like I said, the establishment, they have a dog in the fight, a horse in the race. They got skin in the game. They got things to protect. I understand.
Well, yeah. I published articles, but it's very hard to publish. It's very hard to publish. And one of the reasons is that you got to be careful. You can't start your paper like saying, look, I'm going to show in this article, in this paper, that quantum mechanics is nonsense. You just can't start it that way.
Yeah.
You can't. You got to be very subtle and say, look, guys, look, here's I'm proposing something different. You know,
Come on,
you can't
boys.
just go in there and say Einstein didn't know what he was talking about.
Yeah. That'll ruffle some feathers.
Like that. It won't get published.
Bill, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast. The other thing, thank you so much for your hypothesis, that rope hypothesis.
Yeah. Well, I hope it stimulates your mind.
Oh, definitely and stuff. And another thing, what I love about it is that the average person out here will be able to understand physics and perhaps you know, get more involved in it. I like that so much. And I appreciate you so much, Bill. Thank you so much for coming together.
You know what? Just as a final corollary,
yes.
I always say physics is for kids. It's like tricks, oh,
yeah, you're right.
Physics is for kids. Kids should be able to understand physics. Mathematics probably is not.
Yeah, that's a head scratcher. Yeah. Right. I appreciate you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Gaede, the rope hypothesis. Thank you so much, Bill.
Hey,
once again, I thank each and every one of you for checking out the YanBar Podcast. Join us again next time and check out our past episodes also. Once again, my name is Bryan Barcelo, host of this episode of YanBar Podcast. And remember, YanBar Podcast is a place where you make it happen. Peace. Thank you so much, Bill.